Were there indicators or not? I think there were, yet I failed to notice or anticipate them. Perhaps it was the gradual revelation of clues that didn't signal to me something was wrong. Neither the discovery of 1, 2, nor even 3 clues made me aware of the underlying issue. I was simply a devoted husband and father. Since I came across these signs sporadically and without intention over time, I didn't connect them until that fateful night. For the most part, our life together resembled that of any typical married couple, or so I thought. We went through ups and downs alike. There wasn't any major problem that stood out or directly impacted me. My wife never suggested there was a significant issue, always making sure to communicate her feelings and concerns. Indeed, there seemed to be nothing amiss with our relationship, our marriage, or my wife. I was oblivious to any changes occurring. Sure, call me naive, call me blind or overly trusting, but I failed to recognize any deviation from the norm until it was glaringly obvious. However, now several things seemed out of place. Putting the pieces together, I understood we were dealing with the most severe challenge a couple could face: an external intrusion into our lives. I intended to confront my wife about the proof I had found of her infidelity after 8 years of marriage. I dreaded this confrontation might not end well, and was petrified that my suspicions and discoveries were correct. My affection for her was so profound that the thought of the potential consequences was agonizing. During our conversation, I was compelled to ask about the ongoing situation and then steel myself for the fallout. Maybe she would confess her faults and beg for forgiveness. I desired such an outcome, for my love for her overcame all, and I was ready to forgive, assuming the betrayal stopped. Therefore, let me go back and start from the beginning. The initial sign was a decline in our sexual intimacy. We went from being intimate 2 or 3 times a week to once a month. This pattern persisted for roughly 3 months. She attributed it to sheer exhaustion and an increased workload at her job, which now demanded more of her time. I knew her workload had increased. Indeed, due to her continuous commitments at the hospital, we hadn't enjoyed a week alone together for over a month. But it wasn't solely the reduced sexual intimacy, it was also the noticeable lack of affection and warmth. She brushed off my concerns, insisting it was my imagination. Our intimate moments felt hurried and were mostly initiated by her, concluding more quickly than before. I don't claim to be the epitome of romance, as most husbands probably aren't, but for the past 8 years our sessions of lovemaking would last an hour or 2. Now, she seemed satisfied with a mere 20 minutes. Afterward, she would hasten to bring me to climax. Previously, I would embrace her, and we would continue our intimacy for another half hour, often leading to another round. Now, immediately after finishing, she would get up and head to the bathroom, where I could hear her meticulously cleaning herself. Upon her return to bed, she would turn away from me. These behaviors signaled to me that her love for me had waned. Despite my attempts to rekindle our bond, I faced rejection repeatedly. Lately, there has been a total absence of intimacy for around 3 weeks. The second sign was a distinct change in her attitude and behavior. She began to get annoyed with me far more easily. Her previously playful and kind demeanor towards everyone, our children included, had noticeably declined. Shirley's patience had shortened dramatically. The woman who was once gentle and loving seemed to change almost overnight into someone unrecognizable. Her manner towards me was often cold, or as if my presence was a chore to endure. Today, her responses to me were limited to brief inquiries like what or what's up or I'm not up for it tonight and so on. This behavior marked the beginning of a significant shift, leading to a particularly difficult evening. I returned from work punctually, and being a Friday, I looked forward to our usual weekend ritual of dining out. With her extended work hours and our mutual disinterest in cooking or cleaning up afterward, this had become our habit. Typically, she would arrange for our children to stay with her parents or mine over the weekend. While this occasionally allowed us some quality time together, it lately served as a chance for her to express her frustrations towards me uninhibitedly, without the children necessitating any semblance of civility from her, and she didn't hold back. In an attempt to smooth things over, I resorted to gestures like presenting her with flowers and gifts, including the bouquet I noticed in the living room upon entering our home and loosening my tie, greeting her with, "Honey, I'm back. Are we going out for dinner tonight?" She invited me upstairs to show me her new outfit, confirming our plans. Her tone was calm, not harsh or sharp, which was a promising sign. I resolved to be as gentle as possible, hoping for a pleasant evening together. I replied. Okay, coming up, I thought to myself, not another new outfit, that's the fifth one this month. Yet no closeness, and her constant bad moods due to overworking and merely buying new outfits doesn't really matter to a husband. I grew up understanding that women always needed fresh attire, so my wife's shopping habits didn't really bother me. After all, isn't the act of shopping and acquiring new items what supposedly keeps the economy moving? However, this didn't necessarily mean she was unfaithful. Upon reaching our bedroom door, I found Shirley showcasing an extremely short dress, about 8 or 9 inches above the knee, barely covering her behind, and clinging tightly enough to reveal the lack of undergarments. The dress's dark blue shade accentuated her figure impressively, describing it as merely flattering would be an understatement, akin to calling the Super Bowl just another game. My immediate thought was how she appeared youthful and single, as if she were about to hit the clubs with friends. I smiled and queried. That's the outfit. She returned the smile, asking for my opinion on her appearance. Shirley has always had a knack for looking good, even after a night out. Now, with her hair styled and makeup perfectly applied, she stood there slipping into her high heel, bending in a way that accentuated her curves, reminiscent of the inviting beaches of Cancun in summer. Without hesitation, I exclaimed, "So, are you planning to hit the clubs with friends? You look as if you're 23 and ready for a night out." In my eyes, she embodied the epitome of allure, similar to the standout women seen in bars and dance. However, immediately after speaking, I questioned my choice of words, intending it as both a compliment and a playful tease. Despite being 33 and a mother of 2, she maintained the youthful allure of her early 20s. Yet Shirley perceived my comment negatively, suggesting that many would agree with her youthful appearance, and criticized me for not acknowledging the effort she puts into maintaining her look. She grew angry quickly, and her demeanor towards me shifted instantly. I tried to clarify. "Hold on, Chair, it's a misunderstanding. You wanted my opinion and I gave it. You look stunning, honestly. It's just that wearing such a revealing tight dress isn't common for you. It's not about not being able to, you just haven't in a long time," she retorted, asserting her right to dress as she pleases, feeling youthful and disappointed by my lack of appreciation for her effort. I tried to explain, insisting that she looked incredible and that her figure was as appealing as ever, if not more. I was merely searching for a diplomatic way to express that the dress seemed a tad too. I hesitated, searching for the right words, revealing and form-fitting. In any case, she made her point clear to me. Too risky for a woman of my age and marital status to sport to a dinner outing. Yet, I don't see myself as that kind of mature, married woman, and I love the way I look. My work colleagues have given me compliments, affirming that I look fabulous, she said. To me, incredulous, "You wore that to the office?" My Shirley, as she stood with her hands on her hips, looking at me as if I was utterly oblivious. The position of her hands caused the dress to rise a little more. It seemed as though each gesture she made caused the dress to creep up slightly, resulting in it looking even shorter, and it would not settle down unless she adjusted it manually. She clarified, "Absolutely not. Have you lost your mind?" I picked it up during my lunch hour, slipped into it, and flaunted it around just before I left for the day. We're at home. And, nobody who saw me in it criticized the choice or suggested I didn't look appealing in it. Then my husband comes back and starts to critique both it and me. I expressed to her, "Shirley, the dress is flattering on you. If you were heading out to a club or spending time with friends in a less formal context, then I'd think upon seeing you, she's really dressed to turn heads where I am at a club. Your entrance would surely draw my entire focus," she retorted. "How dare you insinuate my dress is overly suggestive?" And continued, "You can count out any affection from this mature, married woman for quite some time. Indeed, you've made a fine suggestion. Perhaps I will contact Judy and will make a night of it since I'm ostensibly dressed for it." Judy, who is a single parent, and Shirley would occasionally get together for shopping, movie outings, or meals, always ensuring she was back by 11 p.m., so it was never really a concern. Their relationship was akin to sisterhood. Then she proposed, "Yes, maybe I should venture out. Judy has extended such invitations in the past during our outings, but I've declined since she's single and I'm married. Perhaps I require the company of someone younger to value me Confident that I'd find a young man willing to dance with me in this attire, she patted her dress down, making sure I noticed its contouring of her physique, and added, maybe I'll encounter a young man who admires my appearance and acknowledges the effort required to keep up this look. Yes, someone who recognizes the attention I've given to my self-care, perhaps a man who'd delight in seeing me in this attire and would embrace me tightly as we danced. You, evidently, do not. I countered. What do you mean? I constantly commend your beauty and how wonderful you look. I'm puzzled as to why you're making these assertions. Having been married for a considerable time, I know better than to say anything further that might aggravate you. Yet, as a man, and as silly as it might be, I couldn't let it rest at last. When her long venting was over, which seemed to last forever, I lifted my hand, moved closer to her, and met her gaze. I then recognized that her complaints were as they always had been. Wait, let's back up a moment, Shirley. You summoned me to the bedroom the minute I enter the house. Over the past 3 months, I've witnessed numerous new outfits on you. Each and every one was stunning. Did you catch that? I said stunning, I made it explicit. Then, when you sought my view on this latest one, which is by far the most captivating, and I lightly teased about it, you became immediately offended. You were offended, and when I attempted to explain I was merely joking, you threatened to go out in search of a young man's attention while dressed in that outfit that oozes allure. And you expect me to simply stand by and endure your scolding because I merely suggested, following your inquiry, that the dress might be slightly too revealing and tight for a wife and mother of 2, who invariably looks incredible, but maybe shouldn't always strive to seem 20, or at least not incessantly. You asked, what's wrong with this picture? I responded. It appears I'm in a no-win situation. She simply looked at me, a sigh escaping as she adjusted her hosiery. It was then apparent to me she had chosen not to wear anything under the dress. Now, it was undeniable absent were both bra and underwear, leaving only the thigh highs. Listen, Shirley, you're stunning and you don't need a dress like that to show it. Wear what makes you happy, especially when we're together. But I'd prefer if you avoided wearing something so tight and revealing when out with Judy or without me. It could cause problems. But let's not fight about this. I've just returned from a long day at work, hoping for a peaceful weekend with you. It's rare for us to have a weekend without you being busy or called into work, she expressed. So it's my fault now. My fault that a drunk driver crashes and I have to rush in for an emergency at the hospital. That's how I earn my living. It's my job. When they call, I must go. I'm not apologizing for that. You have to come to terms with it. You knew this was a possibility when I took the promotion, and you certainly don't seem to mind the extra money. Also, don't dictate what I should or shouldn't wear out. I might end up wearing it just to prove a point I countered. Extra money? I'd wager you've spent more on these new dresses than you've made. But this isn't about the finances, love. It's about how every time we plan a night out, you get called away and we miss out on our time together. It's as if there's a surveillance here, alerting your workplace exactly when we're about to enjoy ourselves. And let's not start on how our romantic life has been practically non-existent these past months. She offered no reply, merely admiring herself in the mirror, turning this way and that, a smile playing on her lips. In silence, I suggested, let's have dinner once I've showered. She then exited the room. Watching her stride past and down the hallway in that dress, I whispered to myself, welcome back. What in the world happened indeed? New attire and a partner quick to take offense, combined with a dwindling intimate connection, certainly strained our marriage. Although I disapproved of the changes and her choice to parade in that dress, I remained silent, opting not to criticize further. The idea of her being unfaithful, however, never crossed my mind. That night we dined out, and she opted for the dress despite my concerns. While I kept my thoughts to myself, the dinner would have been more enjoyable had it not dampened my appetite. The 2 vodka tonics I had before the meal did allow me to unwind slightly and overlook the inappropriate looks from men and judgmental stares from women. I had to admit, Shirley was breathtaking. I simply did not support her choice to wear that dress unless we were together, as it was not appropriate for the occasion or our plans. Nonetheless, I tried to be as accommodating as possible, so long as she wore it only around me. But the thought of her donning it independently never occurred to me. She seemed to be seeking the attention of a man or men, her outfit almost screaming for notice. Despite how amazing she looked, the gaze of many men made me uneasy. Our conversation was limited, and despite my attempts to initiate more substantial dialogue, I was met with brief or monosyllabic responses. She made no effort to keep the conversation going. Eventually, I simply leaned back and focused on my drink. As we began our meal, her phone rang unexpectedly. She checked the caller ID but decided to ignore it. A short while later, it rang again. She glanced at the phone and then at me, still not picking up. After checking the caller ID again, she mentioned it was her office calling but decided she would call back later. Feeling guilty, I mentioned, "Perhaps it's an emergency, dear. Maybe you should take it." She agreed, saying, "Perhaps you're right." She then rose from the table, inadvertently offering half the restaurant an extended view up her dress as she moved out of the booth. The dress had crept up her figure, achieving its intended effect. The moment was fleeting as I caught a view of the edge of her thigh-high stockings under her outfit. I knew the men seated before our booth probably had a more revealing sight. She then proceeded towards the ladies' room without adjusting her attire. As she walked away, I'm sure I caught a glimpse of the lower portion of her buttocks. Watching her walk away, she put her phone to her ear, initiating a conversation. She was gone for roughly 15 minutes. Upon her return, I asked if she was all right. She sighed, saying, "No, but listen, I need to leave immediately and urgent surgery needs me." Thankfully, I took the call. It concerns a young girl who had a fall, requiring us to alleviate pressure in her brain. "I'm sorry, I really have to go. I suggested we might try to meet up again the next day." Acknowledging her need to depart, I expressed, "All right, I get that you need to leave, so please go." She glanced at me momentarily. Thinking to myself, wow, she looked absolutely beautiful in that dress. I inquired whether she planned to change at home first. She said, "No, I'll pick up a green surgeon's scrubs at the hospital. This operation looks to be quite extensive. It's surely an important one." I must hurry. "I'll grab something to eat before I start." She left me with a kiss, lightly touching her lips to mine. She departed under the watchful eyes of all the men present. Standing at the corner, she waved down a taxi and vanished. I sat there wondering what the hospital staff's reaction would be to her current outfit. Then it struck me that she had already shown them the dress. I left, taking Shirley's dinner with me in a container, thinking she might be hungry after her return. The blinking light of the answering machine caught my eye, and I pressed play. A male voice said, "Shirley, it's Ray. Can you make it tonight? I need you urgently. Please return my call the moment you receive this. It's critical." It seemed they attempted to reach her at home first, and upon failing, they reached out to her cell while I was there. I checked and deleted the other messages. 4 were from Ray, without any hints of unfaithfulness. Just a spouse who gets easily upset over trivial matters and numerous calls from the same individual. None of it pointed to her cheating, from what I could gather. Calling the number, and after several tones, a response came. "Shirley, have you left yet?" I answered. "This is Shirley's husband, and yes, she's en route. May I know who's speaking?" The caller introduced himself as Dr. Ray Stevens, Shirley's co-worker at the hospital. He noted she was supposed to have left the eatery 25 minutes prior and asked for her current location. I confirmed she was on her way and probed about his frequent calls. He defensively responded, "I call her whenever necessary, whenever her help is needed here. That's her responsibility, understand?" Then he abruptly hung up. Another thing to ponder, I thought, considering the new clothing, lack of physical closeness, her perpetual annoyance with me, and the repeated calls from the same man asserting his need for her and her presence. It didn't relate to work, and then the man turned rude when I merely inquired about the regularity of his calls. Later, it dawned on me Shirley would be greatly displeased with me for questioning him about anything. Nonetheless, this doesn't necessarily mean much. It certainly doesn't prove my wife's infidelity. However, I couldn't help but muse, such is life. Hence, I sat awaiting her return. I switched on the television, yet nothing caught my interest. Consequently, I got up and started washing the dishes. Next, I moved to the bedrooms to gather the laundry, deciding to wash the clothes while waiting for her. Normally, we divide the household chores, but recently I found myself handling more of them during her absences. Indeed, I don't conform to the typical husband stereotype. I simply value contributing to our home since we're both earners. As I wrapped up in our bathroom and closed the laundry hamper, I discovered a bra concealed behind it. As I leaned down to retrieve it, I noticed a spill on it. The light blue lace bra was marked with a white, creamy smudge across and around one of its cups. My mind first went to food as the cause. But a taste test, quickly followed by me spitting it out due to its unpleasant bitterness, left me puzzled about its nature. While sorting through the laundry, I came across several bright pieces of underwear, likely from Victoria's Secret or Fredericks of Hollywood, that seemed to have been left in the washing machine, perhaps forgotten and meant to be dried. Shirley had acquired about a dozen new pieces of lingerie, including thongs which, to my knowledge, she hadn't previously worn, at least not around me. There were bras I hadn't seen before that seemed to serve purposes beyond support. Some offered minimal coverage, while two were virtually invisible because of their transparent and thin material. I started to arrange the laundry, separating the items that required bleaching from those that were colored. That's when I found beige underwear hidden inside a pair of jeans. It seemed they had been removed in a rush. I pulled out the jeans, retrieving the underwear from within. I was about to throw them into the laundry pile when I paused. They too were marked with the same white substance, now dried and clung to the fabric, as if it were leftover food. I had to pick it off with my nail. The stain covered the inside around the leg openings. Confused, I stared at them and thought, hold on. Wait a moment. It was Sean. My God, there was semen on one of the appealing new bras and on her underwear, I exclaimed to the empty room. What on earth, Shirley, as I went through the remaining laundry, I found nothing else of note. Thus, I placed the stained underwear and bra into a plastic bag to confront my wife. I declared, Lucy, you have some explaining to do. I headed to the kitchen, grabbed a beer, and started connecting the dots of recent events between Shirley and me. The list included new seductive clothing, cold behavior towards me, a disappearance of intimacy, repeated calls from the same man, and now new lingerie with semen stains. Was this evidence of her infidelity? Certainly, but I required further proof. I phoned the hospital to check on Shirley. The lady on the line mentioned I believe she left around 9 p.m. Please hold, I said. 9 p.m. That was just 30 minutes ago. She must be on her way home now, or arriving shortly. I was put on hold when the woman confirmed, yes sir, she left at 9 p.m., but she was dropping off a few people. They planned to stop for drinks and dinner first. She said if her husband called, to let him know she'd be home late and not to wait up. Is this him? I acknowledged, thanking her. Knowing what she wore made me quite upset. She should have chosen more wisely, especially knowing she would be out. This incident was the fifth in a series over 2 months. We would be somewhere when she would get a page requiring her to leave. Overwhelmed with frustration, I decided to scrutinize Shirley's remaining items. I intended to have her underwear analyzed at a lab by a colleague to check for semen. If present, I would ask for a DNA comparison. The delayed dinner with friends added to the list of concerns needing discussion. Next, I moved to examine Shirley's things, starting with the closet where her outfits were stored. Shirley used the larger walk-in closet. I went through her clothes and found 2 blouses either missing buttons or with tears where buttons used to be, possibly torn off in haste, maybe by Dr. Ray, too impatient to wait for her to undress. A pair of jeans showed a tear at the back seam near the waist, and other garments seemed to have been quickly removed or stretched out forcefully. Nonetheless, the revelation that left me truly amazed was linked to the newly found items at the rear of the closet. As I removed the last of the plunging neckline dresses, a pleasant aroma caught my attention. Drawing it nearer, I took a deep breath and recognized it as the fragrance of aftershave, which wasn't my chosen fragrance. These articles of clothing were fresh, likely only worn once, and carried an overtly provocative look, reminiscent of the outfit she donned this evening. Several other pieces had scents that were new to me. I came across clothing I hadn't laid eyes on previously, still in their retail packaging or recently laundered, tagged with receipts or labels. Upon examining the laundry slips, I observed they were dropped off either on Saturday mornings or Monday afternoons and picked up on Wednesdays. I logged this information, correlating it with the times Shirley was unexpectedly needed elsewhere when we had plans, which coincided with the night she was out with her friend Judy. This trend continued for 3 months, in line with her engagements due to her new job or the more frequent visits with Judy. Moving on from the clothes, I took a gamble and sifted through Shirley's digital calendar. The sole hints were the abbreviations PF and RS or notes about rendezvous with Judy on select dates throughout the last 3 months. Baffled, I speculated that if Shirley was involved in an affair, she wouldn't make it so obvious on her computer. However, RS might refer to Dr. Ray Stevens, consistent with the timelines. Beyond this, there were only erased emails from the Reynolds firm. Judy was our link there. My attempts to open the emails were thwarted by a password, leading me to wonder about the need for such tight security. It dawned on me that to unearth irrefutable proof, I had to outsmart her, resolved to ensure certainty, yet found myself without solid evidence of my wife's cheating. I conceded that my analytical mind at home wasn't as sharp as it was professionally and struggled with the realization that my wife, the mother of our children, could be engaged in an affair with someone named A and remained mystified by the identity or significance of PF. Heading to the kitchen to get a beer, I then sat on the steps to our garage, reflecting new clothes and lingerie. Her changed demeanor towards me, repeated calls from the same man, his sharp tone and sudden cool terminations, lingerie and a bra with traces of aftershave on a shirt that wasn't mine. Were these the clues I had gathered? Indeed they were. Was this enough to confront her? I wasn't sure. Was it enough to see a lawyer? Definitely. But was that the path I wanted to take? I was torn. I felt annoyed, furious and increasingly despondent. Did this mean my wife was cheating? As I connected the dots, my suspicion deepened, tilting towards yes. Then, emptying the bathroom trash revealed 2 discarded juice bottles, suggesting she drank both in a relatively short time, likely the past fortnight. I stored them with the other evidence collected, after disposing of the trash in the larger bin in the garage. My eyes caught a matchbook from the Flamingo Bar and Grill, adorned with a striking pink flamingo on a dark background. I had never been there, indicating it was Shirley's. Digging into the bills and receipts, I found credit card statements and vouchers showing a hotel expense. They must have stayed there the night she claimed to be at the cinema with Judy. It was clear she hadn't gone out with Judy. Judy was just a cover. Knowing Judy, I was sure she would cover for her best friend, leaving me without her backing. Just as I was about to shut the drawer, I noticed a gas receipt at the bottom of the stack from a station close to that hotel, proving her presence there on several occasions. However, these receipts only accounted for 2 or 3 nights. Should she have been unfaithful, it was over a span of 3 months. The details of her additional encounters with him were unclear. While in the garage, it occurred to me to check Shirley's vehicle too. I searched under each seat and the dashboard, yet nothing turned up. When I moved to examine the trunk, my flashlight slipped from my grasp and ended up at the far end. Such was the evening's theme. Retrieving it necessitated crawling into the trunk, during which I bumped my head and uttered a few choice words. That's when I spotted a magnetic container fixed beneath a speaker close to the back window, a type commonly used for hiding an emergency spare key under a car's fender or bumper. Nevertheless, this one was tucked away under the trunk and near the rear window, only noticeable to someone aware of its existence. The key did not fit any part of Shirley's vehicle. My next step was to make a copy of the key and place it back in her car. Further, investigation of the matchbook revealed a map inside marking a spot at the intersection of Route 22 and US 1. I remembered a place called Memories or something similar in that vicinity, recognized as a high-end strip club. It dawned on me to secure a babysitter the next time Cheryl planned an outing with Judy, to follow her discreetly. Additionally, I made a mental note to drop by the Flamingo Grill at some point. I decided to reach out to my buddy Larry, who had the means to intercept phone and computer communications, as well as crack into protected files. I re-entered the house, took a USB drive, and copied the emails I couldn't open earlier. Following that, I collected all the evidence I had found, stowed it in a bag, and hid it in my car. I went back to pick out 2 articles of clothing that were either ripped, cut, or missing a button. The damage was more extensive than I first thought. Included was a skirt with a major rip at the top and a missing button necessary for its closure. Also, there was a sweater, remarkably soft, made from sheep's wool, expensive and new to me. Its neckline seemed overly stretched, with a slight rip as well, originating at the base of the V-neck. Despite it being a minor rip, I took it and placed it with the other collected items. Then I awaited my wife's return. I spent the evening watching TV and eventually nodded off until I was awakened by the front door opening, and my beautiful wife entered, her skirt lifted around her waist. She welcomed me with a smile, commenting that I should have gone to bed, noting it was nearly 1 a.m. and she was off to sleep, suggesting we talk in the morning, as she was thoroughly worn out. I mentioned that Ray had called earlier, presuming she had seen him. She stopped, turned, and looked at me with irritation, questioning why I would bother her employer with trivial questions, and demanded I refrain from such behavior. She then strongly asserted her freedom to speak with whomever she pleases as often as she likes, pointing out that she never questions me about calls from my secretary or our joint meetings. She vented her annoyance to a degree that seemed overly excessive. I just stood there, letting her express herself. After she exited, I was left feeling irritated but resolved to wait until I had all the necessary details. She mentioned going to sleep due to exhaustion, foregoing our usual nighttime farewells or affectionate exchanges. As she struggled with her dress's zipper, I offered help, and together we managed to take it off. It was indeed snug. Turning her back to me, she quickly donned a robe before facing me again. I checked the dress for any damage or stains, but saw none. She questioned my actions, to which I didn't answer directly, instead pointing out that I had saved her some dinner from the restaurant in the refrigerator in case she was hungry. She told me she had already had a meal with colleagues after surgery. When I inquired about her whereabouts after 9 p.m., and with whom she dined, she recounted their evening of dining and dancing, admitting she dressed to attract attention. Despite my efforts to connect, she kept her distance, expressing her wish for solitude that night, and possibly longer, suggesting I sleep elsewhere. I couldn't hide my astonishment and asked about her evening with Dr. Ray. She chose to be alone, preferring an undisturbed night. All I had wanted was a simple goodnight kiss from my wife, Cheryl, assuring her of my non-confrontational intentions. Reveal who accompanied you tonight. Could it have been Dr. Ray Stevens? She merely stared back at me before proceeding to the bathroom. I trailed behind, but she shut the door on me. After pausing briefly outside, I tapped on the door, pressing I must be informed of your companion this evening without fail, and I shall not depart until informed. Met with silence, I intensified my plea. Blast it, Shirley, engage with me. What is transpiring between you? Us opening the door, draped in a towel, she conceded. All right, you win. Here's the darned goodnight peck you wanted. She edged closer, prompting me to peck her. She offered no reciprocation. As she was closing the door behind her, she uttered, heaven's sake, what a nag. Can you now let me prepare for bed in peace? I'm worn out. During our kiss, I recognized the fragrance of the cologne from her dress hanging in the wardrobe. Compelled, I drew her near, embracing her firmly. She gripped the towel, pleading, release me. I desire to bathe and retire for the night. Che. Let go, curse it. I noticed her motionlessness, avoiding further kisses from me. As I pressed kisses onto her cheek and neck, she remained passive, her face displaying contempt without a trace of affection, only despair. The cologne was unmistakable, and as I kissed her mouth, it was akin to kissing marble. I released her, observing her in silence. What's going on with you? She stated. Bluntly, I need to bathe. I'm tired and want to sleep. Good night, then. We'll talk tomorrow, surely. We must. Shirley understood. Yet, as I inquired, understood. What do you mean? Shirley attempting to keep the door from closing. Not at this moment. I just wish to bathe and sleep. This moment works for me. Let's discuss. No, she declined once more. How about I join you in the shower? You looked so tempting tonight, you've aroused me. No, but feel free to pleasure yourself. Excuse me. What did you just say? I was shocked. I said pleasure yourself. You're not getting any from me tonight. Now, go away. This was a new tone for her. I had never heard her speak this way before. What right did she have? I am her husband. Yet, I persisted. It'll be worth your while. No, just leave me to my shower and bedtime. If you're that desperate, go pleasure yourself. She pushed against the door more forcefully. I protested. No, Shirley, I won't leave until you clarify what's occurring. I'm seeking closeness from my wife of 8 years right now tonight. Blast it. Well, I'm denying my husband of a tedious 8 years. Exit the restroom. I began to yank at the towel, and she resisted vehemently, struggling and striking me first with one hand, then both, striving to maintain her hold on the towel. I persisted, gradually overpowering. Eventually, she seemed too fatigued or simply resigned. It was unclear. She released her grip, standing there, fixing a stern look at me. Then she inquired, satisfied now observing her magnificent physique and beautiful visage. I understood her insistence on the towel and her aversion to closeness. Her body bore bruises and was adorned with hickeys. Had there been more to her story? Examining her more closely, I noted bruises shaped like handprints on her thighs, and then I spotted a fresh streak on each inner thigh, apparently still oozing and trailing down her leg. This illuminated her urgency for a shower and her denial of my advances. Gently, I asked, "Shirley, what is this?" as I reached to touch her. She recoiled slightly, looked at me, then with irritation stated, "What does it seem, Bud? It matches what's on a pair of your new boxers." It appeared to indeed be Ray's work. She exhaled deeply and pleaded, "Please just let me have a moment to shower, then we can talk. I need to freshen up." Insistently, I probed, "Is it really Ray?" My forceful utterance made her jump again, likely alerting the neighbors. She looked at me, then cast her eyes downward, whispering a faint yes. That was her only reply. I stood there, watching her. When I questioned again about Ray, she reaffirmed. Seeing my dismay, she begged, "For goodness sake, don't cry. Show some fortitude for once. Depart, allowing me to shower." "Do you understand why I am crying, Shirley?" she asked. "Yes, because this evening I became close with someone new in my life, a person whom you'll inevitably meet," she stated, though her words were partially lost to me. I retorted, "No, my tears are because there's no love left between us. I'm grieving the loss of our bond, suffocated by despair tonight, after discovering your betrayal. These tears mark the dissolution of our marriage, embodying my disgust and repulsion towards you now. In the span of just a few hours, I've been transformed. From cherishing and revering you to loathing and desiring your absence. I would have done anything for you, Cheryl, to maintain our relationship. Anything but endure this betrayal. I wish for your disappearance, as the agony you've caused is intolerable, leaving me shattered emotionally. I am now empty of feeling, devoid of love or desire, only filled with sorrow and scorn," she confessed upon seeing my anguish. However, she feigned unawareness of the current crisis, indicating it was a fresh ordeal for me. After a short break, she added, "Listen, I'm worn out. Can we hold here for now? We can revisit this tomorrow." I consented. "Yes, Cheryl, we are done. Our union is irrevocably ended. I trust you find it justified. You've lost your house, your partner, and perhaps your kids. The outcome remains to be seen, but I won't hand everything over easily. Yet, if you do end up claiming it all, bear in mind I've discovered someone better and more affluent. He's a doctor, wealthy, and exceeds you in every way. He loves me, and I reciprocate. Tonight we declared our love after spending 2 hours together. When have you ever equaled that? Never, especially not in our first year. You've been hasty, deeming your efforts in love ineffectual, comparing yourself to an old man. Ray, however, is full of passion like a strong stallion. I agreed to give birth to your children," she taunted, insinuating that our children might be from other men she was with at the time, due to our unprotected sex, as she never wanted kids, thinking I would take on the role of father anyway. Her mocking laugh further crushed me. Then she stopped talking, just watching me as though I was the most lamentable person she had ever seen. "Are you suggesting I'm not our children's father?" I inquired. Her smile indicated worry, acknowledging uncertainty about their paternity, possibly related to other liaisons then. Despite our mutual wish for kids and her apathy, she speculated on their parentage, presuming I would embrace fatherhood. She questioned my adequacy, blaming it on my physical shortcomings, while I considered myself sufficient for someone less demanding than her. Her doubt provided a small comfort, leading to thoughts of a paternity test, which she strongly rejected, urging to keep the children out of our conflict. I then inquired about the purpose of our extended marriage, despite her cheating. She explained, "For our family's sake and for security, I did hold love for you when we first married. Yet that changed after my first encounter with another better endowed man, about 3 months after our first child was born. He was interested, and I was drawn to the attention and feeling youthful and free. You were preoccupied with the kids, and I succumbed to his allure almost every other night for 6 months as we worked together in the evenings. Since then, I've been searching for the perfect one, like a doctor with notable physical qualities, someone who could satisfy me fully. I desired more from life than just being a spouse and mother to two. I asked if Ryan was the one she had awaited. She smiled, closed her eyes, and affirmed, yes, but unfortunately for you, he has. Requested I leave you tonight for him. I planned to talk to you about it in the morning, to express my wish for us to part ways, but in truth it wouldn't have changed anything. We have long stopped being a couple, at least I stopped being your wife. Seeing me now, evidence of my unfaithfulness clear, will likely make it easier for both of us. Pondering, hesitating, or considering a temporary split serves no purpose. Let's split everything down the middle and proceed with our separate lives. She grinned again, but this time a spiteful sparkle was in her eyes. She proclaimed, I can't see a future for us together unless you're okay with me being with him whenever I wish. Let me be clear, he will have more of my time than you. You'll take care of the kids, so you'll cope. For our children's sake, I'll stay legally married to you until they're grown, but you must come to terms with a lack of closeness from my end. My love and my body are reserved for Ray. My role will be strictly maternal towards our children. If that's unacceptable, then I'm completely out of your life. Her declaration left me speechless. My brain couldn't grasp her words. I merely gazed at her, tears flooding my cheeks, engulfed by despair. My heart was in pieces, and now she was stomping on those shards. With a slight smirk, she advised, look up at me, but don't lower your gaze. Witness how he has possessed my body. His control over me was something I reveled in, a body now utterly his. He arouses me in ways you never managed, not at the beginning, not on our honeymoon, not on any anniversary or special occasion. He stirs a fierce lust and longing in me. He craves me incessantly, darling, and the sentiment is reciprocated. In every way he is superior to you. Her words cut deep, and the most agonizing realization was that she intended this hurt. It was my turn to retort. The only means available to me were guilt and remorse. So I queried, what about the father and the man who once revered you, adoring you as though you were the sole woman on earth? Or does he adore you for morphing into the person you are today? Does he also intend to claim our children? Does he affirm his affection? Or are you merely all he's prepared to abandon upon your departure? She hesitated, so I pressed further. Will his love endure through sickness or injury, possibly to the point where intimacy becomes impossible? Will his affection last then? What about as you age and struggle to even move, let alone engage in various intimate acts? Or, as I suspect, will he use you and then discard you for someone younger and fresher? Who was before you, Cheryl? Have you ever encountered her, seen her, or discussed him with her? She disclosed that he had been previously married, but was now single. No, I've never met his ex-wife, nor do I care to. I know he adores me and prioritizes me above everything in his life right now. He's even suggested moving so that I wouldn't have to see or deal with you again. He loves me, and I love him. I refuted, convinced that he doesn't outshine me in every regard, simply using you as if you were nothing more than a sex toy. She insisted he thrilled her profoundly, displaying more passion with a single look than you have in your entire essence. You can't grasp what this means because you've never felt it. You last merely a moment compared to the time he spends with me, thus you forfeited your children and your life with me for someone more physically gifted. I hope for your sake he turns out to be worth it in a year, or 8, if you last that long. He will deceive you, and I'm sure you weren't his first and won't be his last. Such men don't change indeed. All he seeks is victory, then proceeds to gain each time you lower yourself by dressing or acting as you do now. Moving on, and back to him. Good luck with him. I bet once you start living with him, he'll quickly grow bored, and within a year he'll cheat on you with someone younger. She replied with scorn, yet you're just hurt and troubled now by him and me. You're merely bitter, that's all it is. But we love and cherish each other. He's remarkable, and he's whisking me away to the Caribbean soon, actually next week. I won't be here. I'll be packing my things, my new acquisitions, and my sexiest attire. And will leave you by the weekend. When I return, I'll gather the rest of my belongings. Then we can discuss your decisions about the divorce, or if you want me to stay and function as the mother to our kids. But remember, I won't be your wife anymore. We'll sort this out when I get back from my splendid vacation. I had begun to walk away as she relayed this to me. I felt sick, and my head was pounding with pain. I couldn't bear discussing it further with her. It was over, and I was aware of it. Now she was raising her voice, making her last point to me clear. Indeed, we will take care of it once I'm back from the Caribbean, after my honeymoon but before the wedding. I'll arrange for my lawyer to get in touch with yours on Monday. This is his card with his contact details. Ray handed it to me this morning to give to you, but since you're already aware of our situation, you might as well have it now. After that moment, my memory fades. I cannot recall what happened next. My memory has gaps, blank spaces as if I were asleep. Yet here's what I remember. Hearing her final words about managing our issue after her grand voyage honeymoon and preceding her wedding felt like a stab in my stomach. A wave of nausea overtook me, and I began to vomit. Standing up, I turned around to see her with her arms akimbo. I vomited again on the rug. The last thing I clearly remember is charging at her, filled with a hatred I hadn't felt since my military days. At that moment, I understood. I was on the verge of doing something terrible. Unable to stop myself, I realized she was in grave danger. My rationality was gone. I had completely lost it. She saw me and momentarily froze, recognizing the look on my face. Her skin turned a ghastly shade of grey. She screamed, trying to escape to the bathroom, fumbling to shut the door. Pushing from her side while I pushed from mine, she yelled, "Don't you dare touch me. Leave now. Get out." Despite her efforts, they were in vain. I burst the door open with such force she was thrown backward. She tried to cushion her fall but failed. She fell back and her head hit the bathtub's edge sharply. A distinct sound followed by a trickle of blood forming near her head next to the tub was observed. She was still. After checking her pulse, I realized she was dead. I called the police. The next 2 months were long and filled with difficulty, encompassing an investigation into her death and the possibility of my involvement. A well-respected doctor testified about their clandestine affair. He disclosed her plans to leave me, intending to tell me the weekend she died. He admitted to causing the bruises found on her and to being with her intimately that night twice. He suggested my discovery of his actions drove me to kill her. In my defense, I told the judge I was oblivious to the affair until finding my wife dead. She hadn't mentioned anything, and I was likely asleep when she came home at 1 a.m. I shared my shock upon learning this with the court. Regarding that night, I spoke of our dinner and how she wore her new blue dress. The restaurant's manager and a waiter confirmed we were there, noting her early departure for a supposed emergency at the hospital where she actually met her lover. I maintained I was asleep upon her return, unaware of her arrival time. The kids were at their grandmother's, leaving the house otherwise empty. A loud noise at the house's front woke me, leading me to find my wife in the bathroom. I called emergency services and performed CPR until they arrived. During the trial, my tears were real, not for her death, but for the betrayal. The judge ruled insufficient evidence for a conviction, declaring her death a tragic accident. Now, my only question is about seeking revenge on Dr. Ray. If a charming, attractive woman came to you, would her being married matter if you both were deeply involved and she reciprocated your feelings? I hesitated until seeing my kids and mother in the hallway. A paternity test, the reasons for which were not shared with them but claimed necessary for a Disney cruise post-school year, confirmed they were indeed my offspring with 99.99978% certainty. Should I seek revenge on Ray Stevens? No, why take the risk unless the bitterness towards him is overwhelming and persistent? But as my late wife often said, I'll deal with all this after my wonderful vacation. Dear listeners, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.